In today's lecture, we are going to talk about Sir Thomas Wyatt's poem, Farewell Love. Sir Thomas Wyatt was renowned primarily for his poetry in modern times, but in his own time, he led a very risky and exciting life. While producing some of the most brilliant poems of the 16th century, he also had to navigate treacherous waters due to his involvement in the court of King Henry VIII. The court at this time was not a peaceful place at all. It was rife with conspiracies and rivalries among different parties, and it was a breeding ground for suspicion and betrayal as the king's own obsessions and mistrust of his courtiers grew unchecked. Born around 1503, Thomas Wyatt was the eldest of 3 children born to Sir Henry Wyatt, who was a very loyal supporter of Henry Tudor. He was so loyal, in fact, that under Richard III, he had to experience a lot of torture and imprisonment because of his loyalty to the Tudors. Despite this, he never gave up on his loyalty to the Tudor court, and his loyalty paid off in the sense that when Henry VIII came to the throne, Sir Henry Wyatt's fortunes changed and he rose to prominence as a Privy Councillor and Knight of the Bath, thanks to his financial acumen and his intense loyalty. Sir Henry recognized his son Thomas's potential and wasted no time in securing his place at court as well. Endowed with intelligence, charm and wit, Sir Thomas Wyatt quickly ascended the courtly ranks, aided by his father's influence. Henry VIII's court, inherited from his father, was not only at this time a political center, but also a hub of artistic expression. Sir Thomas Wyatt's dual role as a court poet as well as an emissary for the king allowed him to straddle both the realms effectively, both the political as well as the artistic realm. The poetry of Sir Thomas is emerging during a period of intense cultural and intellectual transformation in England, shaped by the influence of Renaissance humanism and also the traditions of courtly love. Wyatt's works exemplify a new poetic direction, blending personal expression with the formal structures and ideals of classical and European literary traditions, while at the same time reflecting the complexities of life at the Tudor court. Lyric poetry during Wyatt's time was heavily influenced by the European courtly love tradition, which originated in the 12th century with the troubadours of southern France. This tradition marked a significant shift in the portrayal of relationships between men and women. Women were no longer seen as merely possessions of men, but were instead idealized as objects of reverence and longing, particularly in poetic expression. Central to the concept of courtly love was the idealization of women, elevating them to a status beyond mere property or utility. They became symbols of purity, beauty, and virtue, inspiring poets to compose verses filled with adoration and desire. However, despite there being a shift from the representation of women as mere objects of men to this idealization of women who acted as muses or inspiration for the predominantly male poets, there was still the sense of the object of affection, the woman, known as the lady in the courtly love tradition, remaining passive in the poems. She is still not an active subject, but a passive object of the poet's adoration. Shown as unattainable and chaste, this figure of the beloved added a sense of longing as well as frustration to the lover's passion. So why are we talking about all these traditions, all this history? Because these were the themes, these were the contexts that shaped the poetic conventions across Europe at this time, setting the stage for the works of Francesco Petrarch in the 14th century and later Wyatt's adaptations of Petrarch into England. Wyatt possibly discovered his poetic calling sometime in the 1520s during a time of personal and professional engagement with the Tudor court. This is very important. You cannot divorce Wyatt's poetry from the Tudor court. Wyatt's poetics is intimately tied to the goings-on, to his experiences at court. Wyatt's travels abroad and his linguistic abilities provided him with a unique entry point into Italian poetry, particularly the works of Petrarch, whose compositions were shaping the literary landscape of Europe during Wyatt's time. Deeply influenced by Petrarch's innovations, Wyatt translated and adapted Italian sonnets and introduced the form to England. This was a significant moment in literary history as Wyatt's adaptations of Petrarchan sonnets laid the foundation for the evolution of English verse. He practically introduced the form of the sonnet to English poetry and eventually inspired poets and sonneteers like Shakespeare and Spenser. Lyric poetry in mid-Tudor England differed markedly from its contemporary form. It was very different from lyric poetry today. These poems used to be typically handwritten. They would avoid very weighty or heavy subjects, and they were not intended for public dissemination. Instead, they circulated among courtiers as intimate personal expressions, and in the tightly knit society of the Tudor court, even if someone wrote an anonymous poem, even if the poem was unsigned, the authors would frequently be recognized based on the style and content of the poem. Similarly, the subjects of the poems would also be frequently recognized, and this would add greatly to the intrigue of the courtly game. Wyatt's own life at court, marked by political intrigue and personal challenges, as I said before, deeply influenced his poetry. You cannot separate Wyatt's poet from Wyatt's role in the court. His possible involvement with Anne Boleyn before her marriage to Henry VIII remains a source of speculation. There was a lot of speculation about their relationship. However, there was no concrete proof that could be gathered. There was such a lot of intrigue and speculation about this that Wyatt was even arrested in 1536 during a wave of paranoia and accusations following Anne's downfall. But later he had to be released without concrete evidence of any wrongdoing. Now, these personal experiences, this experience of his loyalty constantly being questioned, his steadfastness, his integrity being questioned. So all of these experiences, his understanding of his precarious position in Henry's court, lent a sense of tension, longing, and resilience to his work, themes that resonated with the tumultuous nature of Tudor England. Wyatt's poetry, while rooted in the conventions of courtly love, also reflects the humanist ideals of this time. The early Tudors were in fact among the first to embrace and engage with the intellectual and cultural movement known as Renaissance humanism. What is Renaissance humanism? This phenomenon rooted in the revival of classical ideals from ancient Greece and Rome, emphasized individual dignity, the study of the humanities, and a harmonious balance between secular and spiritual concerns. Renaissance humanism celebrated human potential, creativity, and rationality, marking a shift from the medieval focus on divine authority from religion to a more human-centered perspective. In poetry, it inspired a deeper exploration of personal emotions and individual identity, profoundly influencing the literary output of the period. As you can already gather by now, Sir Thomas Wyatt, who was a prominent figure in early Tudor poetry, produced work that was bold, confident, and distinctly modern for its time. His poetics reflect his steadfast character and integrity as a courtier, negotiating with the precarious, with the fraught environment of Henry VIII's court, a world that was rife with danger, suspicion, and political intrigue. Wyatt's poetry embodies individuality and ambition, qualities that paralleled England's cultural and national evolution during this transformative period. It marked a departure from medieval traditions, embracing intellectual vigor and civic ideals of humanism. Therefore, we can see Wyatt's work acting as a bridge between the medieval and the modern traditions of English poetry. Now that we know a little bit about Sir Thomas Wyatt, about his position at court, and in general about poetry, about the poetry of his time and how he is contributing to the poetry of his time, how he is taking it forward, another concept that must be clear to us before we move on to the poem at hand is the idea of the Elizabethan conceit. This is very important to understanding the Elizabethan sonnet in general and Farewell Love in particular. What is a conceit? A conceit is a fanciful idea often expressed through decorative comparisons or implied metaphors, and this was a hallmark of Elizabethan poetry, particularly the sonnet tradition. Inspired by classical poets like Petrarch and Dante, English sonneteers perfected the art of elaborate conceits to immortalize the idealized beloved, portraying her as pure and unattainable. These conceits often depicted exaggerated standards of feminine beauty, such as skin as fair as snow or lips as red as ruby. Despite these lofty physical descriptions, however, the notion of love transcending physical attraction was also very evident in the speaker's devotion. Wyatt elevated English sonnets with his meticulous craftsmanship, striking a balance between classical and romantic tones. During this time, rhetoric would play a very crucial role, as poetry served not only as entertainment but also as instruction for the noble class. A successful sonnet therefore required a harmonious blend of sentiment, imagery, and logical precision. All three were required. Emotion was required, the use of the conceit, imagery, elaborate imagery was required, as well as the use of rationality or logic. Sonnetteers would often draw upon nature's imagery to support their logical arguments, reflecting an Elizabethan stress on individualism and rationality. Under the Tudors, moreover, remember that the Tudors were among the first to embrace Renaissance humanism with its emphasis on individuality, emphasis on education, right? So under the Tudors, there was a special admiration for education and learning, with the belief that the intellect can help forge patterns of logical interpretations on an essentially chaotic human life. Poetry was a medium that could help gauge the chaos that is human life, that is human existence. So now that we know about Thomas Wyatt, about the history of his life at court, about how he is engaging with existing poetic traditions, and we don't know a little bit about the Elizabethan conceit, let us move directly into the sonnet at hand, Sir Thomas Wyatt's Farewell Love. This sonnet was published in Tottel's Miscellany in 1557 with the title A Renouncing of Love. Let us read the poem. Farewell, love, and all thy laws forever. Thy baited hooks shall tangle me no more. Seneca and Plato call me from thy lore to perfect wealth, my wit for to endeavour. In blind error when I did persevere, thy sharp repulse that pricketh eye so sore, taught me in trifles that I set no store, but scaped forth thence, since liberty is lever. Therefore, farewell, go trouble younger hearts, and in me claim no more authority. With idle youth go use thy property, and thereon spend many brittle darts. For hitherto, though I have lost my time, me list no longer rotten boughs to climb. This version of the poem has been taken from the poetical works of Sir Thomas Wyatt, edited by James Ewell and published by George Bell and Sons in 1904. First, I would like to talk about the structure and the form of the poem. As has already been said before, the poem has been composed in the form of a sonnet and specifically a Petrarchan sonnet. What is a sonnet? A sonnet is a 14-line lyric poem with a specific rhyme scheme. The name was derived from the Italian sonetto, meaning little song. Now, the Petrarchan sonnet is divided into two parts. A sonnet has 14 lines. Petrarchan sonnet divided into two parts. The first 8 lines are known as the octave, and the last 6 lines are known as the sestet. These two parts of the Petrarchan sonnet usually set out a clear division in thought, where the octave, the first 8 lines, octave, introduces a problem, a situation, or an emotional state, and the sestet, the last 6 lines, offer a resolution, reflection, or a counter-argument. So, Petrarchan sonnet, 14 lines, first 8 lines octave, introducing a problem, an emotional state, a situation, and the last 6 lines a sestet, which is providing a counter-argument, a resolution, or a reflection. Now, the rhyme scheme, a strict rhyme scheme would be followed in Petrarchan sonnets. For the octave, it was usually A-B-B-A, A-B-B-A. The sestet would vary between C-D-C, D-C-D or C-D-E, C-D-E. This would be the rhyme scheme of a typical Petrarchan sonnet. It was either A-B-B-A, A-B-B-A, C-D-C, D-C-D or A-B-B-A, A-B-B-A, C-D-E, C-D-E. If we look at Farewell Love, we find that it is a sonnet. It has 14 lines. It has a Petrarchan form in that it has been divided into the octave and the sestet, but it has a variation in that the rhyme scheme of the sestet introduces a couplet. The rhyme scheme of the sestet is different from a typical Petrarchan sonnet. Just like a Petrarchan sonnet, Wyatt opts for ABBA, ABBA in the octave and follows it with C-D-D-C, E-E, the couplet E-E in the sestet. Now, why this modification? This modification not only reflects the natural rhythms of English language, which differs in stress and cadence from the Petrarchan Italian. It follows the natural cadence of the English language, but it also underscores Wyatt's innovative approach to the sonnet form. So he's not just copying, he's not just translating a Petrarchan sonnet, but he is introducing his own variation. He's not just imitating, he's adapting, he's introducing his own variation, his own form of the sonnet, more suited to English poetry. So the concluding rhyming couplet, a departure from Petrarchan conventions, brings a sense of finality and resolution, highlighting Wyatt's ability to blend tradition with personal invention. Now we shall move on to the critical commentary on the poem. What does the poem mean? For this, let us read the octave once more, the first 8 lines. Farewell, love, and all thy laws forever, thy baited hooks shall tangle me no more. Seneca and Plato call me from thy lore, to perfect wealth my wit for to endeavour. In blind error when I did persevere, thy sharp repulse that pricketh eye so sore, taught me in trifles that I set no store, but escaped forth thence, since liberty is lever. So in the first 8 lines or the octave of the sonnet, the speaker bids goodbye to his beloved, farewell love, or to the very idea of love with all its complex rules and all thy laws forever. So bidding goodbye not only to the beloved but also to the complex rules of love itself. He personifies the abstract feeling of love, stating that love will no longer be able to trap him. He will no longer be foolishly baited like a fish. Thy baited hooks shall tangle me no more. Instead, he decides to follow the wise teachings of great philosophers like Seneca and Plato. Seneca and Plato call me from thy lore. He feels that following the wisdom of these philosophers, he will attain the true path of knowledge and achieve mental well-being. Look at these lines. Taught me, Seneca and Plato call me from thy lore, to perfect wealth my wit for to endeavour. So, Seneca, the teachings of Seneca and Plato bring him back to the true path of knowledge and to mental well-being. The speaker is clearly a spurned lover. In the lines following these first 4 lines, he expresses regret at having spent such a long time in pursuing his beloved, despite being painfully rejected by her again and again. However, from all this pain, from all this experience, from all this times of being rejected, he has also learned a valuable lesson. His perseverance has taught him a lesson, by virtue of which he resolves never to value emotions of love and escape from its clutches to attain freedom. Love is nothing but pain for the speaker, and he wishes to release itself from its memories. The octave also reflects the Renaissance ideals of balancing the vita activa or the active life with the vita contemplativa or the contemplative life, suggesting that personal experience and philosophical insight are intertwined. It is the pain of rejection that has taught him the philosophy of not wasting time on love anymore, on seeking the true path of knowledge, on seeking mental well-being. So these personal experiences are linked intimately with philosophical reflection. The experience of love, though painful, has imparted essential lessons to the speaker as he acknowledges that the sharp repulse of rejection and love's trifles have been integral to his maturity. Now we come to the sestet. Let's read it once again. Therefore farewell, go trouble younger hearts, and in me claim no more authority. With idle youth go use thy property, and thereon spend thy many brittle darts. For hitherto, though I have lost my time, me list no longer rotten boughs to climb. In the sestet, we see a decisive shift in perspective, which is called a volta in a sonnet. I had already said that the octave presents a situation or a problem, and the sestet provides a counter argument or a solution. Now, this shift from problem to solution is called a volta, and it occurs in the sestet. In this poem also, we see this shift or volta at work. When the speaker bids goodbye once again to the lady of the sonnet, his beloved, and tells her that she no longer has any claim or hold on his heart. Therefore, she can use her powers of attraction on younger, idler men. This may indicate that the speaker has matured in the lessons learned from an unrequited love. He understands that the attraction of the promises of love is far greater in youth. The words brittle darts refer to Cupid's arrows. As Cupid, the god of love in Greek mythology, you must have seen Cupid, a baby with a bow and an arrow. That is how he is usually represented. So Cupid, the god of love in Greek mythology, is often depicted as a child shooting golden arrows from his bow. When these arrows strike their targets, one male and one female, they fall in love involuntarily. Thus, those affected by Cupid's arrows really have no say in choosing their partners and are powerless to resist this emotion. The speaker compares the beloved's inconsistent affections or the unpredictable nature of love itself to these arrows that cause pain and are fragile. He laments the time wasted in pursuing the beloved and regrets the efforts he has expended in seeking her favor. He declares that he is beyond the age of proving his love through heroic deeds and uses the metaphor of rotten branches. Me list no longer rotten boughs to climb. He uses this metaphor of rotten boughs or rotten branches to illustrate how their love has withered, signaling the impossibility of any new growth in their relationship. Given Wyatt's intimate knowledge of the conventions and conceits of Elizabethan poetry, as well as his eminent but ever precarious position in the Tudor court, some scholars have read this poem, Farewell Love, particularly this last line, me list no longer rotten boughs to climb, in very, very interesting ways. John Robinson, for instance, in a book titled Court Politics, Culture and Literature in Scotland and England, 1500 to 1540, forges a link between the last line of Wyatt's sonnet and the goings-on, the happenings of Henry VIII's court. He points out that bows in Old English meant shoulders. Through the use of bows in the last line, therefore, Wyatt has injected an element of ambiguity that makes this sonnet more than simply a love poem. I have already said many times before that you have to link Wyatt's love poetry to his life at court. This is exactly what John Robinson is doing. In his line of argument, love has a double meaning. It stands for both the speaker's love for an unnamed beloved and the poet's loyalty towards the court. Therefore, the poem serves as a critique of Tudor politics, depicting it as a corrupt and treacherous realm devoid of order, morality, and value for loyalty. So just as the speaker is bidding goodbye to his beloved, it seems as if Wyatt is also bidding goodbye. Wyatt is also telling that I am beyond proving myself again and again as a courtier. I'm done with this. On first reading, the poem seems like a typical expression of heartbreak and resulting indignation. However, by utilizing the ambiguity of language, Wyatt forces the reader to rethink this first interpretation. He challenges them to consider the broader implications of power and morality within the context of Tudor politics. Indeed, viewing the poem through the lens of Tudor court life provides valuable insight into Wyatt's own experiences and challenges as a courtier. In a society where patronage, loyalty, and protection were crucial for one's survival and advancement, Wyatt would have been constantly subjected to the complex web of relationships and power dynamics within the court, and we've seen that this has happened with him. The imagery of climbing rotten boughs, therefore, can be interpreted as Wyatt's struggle to rise in ranks and favor within the court. At each step, despite his best efforts, he has to struggle because of the treacherous political landscape of the court, where alliances could be fragile and loyalty short-lived. The speaker's desire to no longer climb these boughs reflects a tiredness with the constant planning, plotting, and intrigue required to maintain his position. Given the intimate nature of Tudor poetry, usually read within a close circle of courtiers, as I had said before, Wyatt's immediate audience would perhaps have understood his lament. However, since this critique of Tudor court politics is craftily hidden within a love sonnet, even his enemies would not be able to accuse him of disloyalty to the court. So, look at the intelligent use of the sonnet form by Wyatt. Not just this sonnet, but the entire body of Thomas Wyatt's love poetry carries significant political undertones, as he often veils his precarious political standing with depictions of erotic relationships, where the lover poet appears to be at the mercy of his beloved. Lauro Martinez, in his examination of Renaissance Italian city-states, suggests that sequences of lyric poems in the Petrarchan style serve as mini utopias, allowing ambitious individuals to envision a mastery they lack in reality. Wyatt achieves this with enormous skill. He's doing exactly this. He's using the traditional form of the Petrarchan sonnet to comment on the politics of court. While he could not always control the complications at court and the chaos that resulted in his own life, the set form of the sonnet gives him some sense of control and agency. Thus, Wyatt's poetry encompasses both the frustrations of love and of politics, employing the conventions of love poetry to convey emotions for the beloved, while also expressing socially and politically driven ambitions, realities, and disappointments using a shared vocabulary. So let us quickly conclude this lecture by saying that Sir Thomas Wyatt's Farewell Love is a Petrarchan sonnet that intricately weaves together themes of love, politics, and personal reflection. Through a renunciation of love and the beloved, the speaker rejects the superficiality and transient nature of love. He no longer wishes to engage in fleeting romantic pursuits or invest in relationships that lack depth and substance. Wyatt often uses the guise of erotic relationships in his love poetry to mask his true sentiments and express his political frustrations. This infuses his sonnets with double meaning. By employing the language and conventions of love poetry, he conveys his dissatisfaction with his precarious political position in the Tudor court without overtly risking retribution. As a product of the Renaissance, the sonnet reflects the period's emphasis on reason and self-mastery, while also serving as a poignant critique of the instability and moral compromises of Tudor court life. Wyatt's ability to infuse the conventions of love poetry with broader reflections on power and human frailty ensures the enduring relevance of Farewell Love as both a personal lament and a commentary on the complexities of early modern existence. Thank you.